We are back on Unverified, and my goodness, I'm not sure an hour is going to be enough from everything that we are going to discuss here. Kyle is with us. He is enjoying a beverage while doing his fantasy football draft. David Land is here as well, fresh off an awesome interview with Chip Ganassi over the weekend. I had one with Tony Kanaan. That'll be coming out tomorrow. A first-time winner. What seems to be, and for probably a lot of people that are watching this that are young, a first-time video game in their generation. We've got so many rumors and speculation to talk about. Dude Bro Sources are going to be off the freaking hook as we come off a pretty good weekend up in Milwaukee. Christian Rasmussen, first-time winner. It really had an old-school feel to the race weekend all in all, I would say. You have a first-time winner who decides to go against Alex Palou late and pit for tires. I asked Alexander Rossi about that. I said, was that a good call, knowing that Palou stayed out? Rossi said, yeah. We got Rossi to victory lane. That was great. Boys, so much to talk about. We welcome everybody. Can't wait for Nashville this weekend. David, your initial thoughts about 48 hours after leaving Milwaukee and what we saw up in the land of cheese, beer, and brats.
And Kringles.
Just finished that, by the way.
Well, how was it? You didn't share.
Oh, well, you didn't seem too thrilled with the apple flavor of it.
Well, you're not supposed to. I mean, here's the deal.
What do you mean?
Here's
David?
a hot take. Ready for a hot take?
No, don't do it, race fans.
Here we go. We're gonna. You wanted to start off hot. We're starting off hot. I don't think fruit belongs on dessert. I think fruit is a completely separate thing. I like fruit, but you can't. It's not dessert. Dessert is something that either has chocolate on it or I don't know.
So if you had a strawberry sundae, you just want the sauce. You don't want you don't want strawberries in it.
This comes from the same guy who just doesn't like eggs.
Right. Unless it's on French toast.
And I think we discussed this a couple episodes ago that David's an asshole, right? So when you take opinions like that on dessert, just don't take them seriously.
Well, shout out Honda for feeding us. Please don't go. That French toast was excellent over. What a great weekend we had.
I never said what I felt about the weekend. You were ticking the bingo card off the bat. My God, that's the free space, by the way, is talking about the French toast at Honda. Hi, Tim. So I thought it was a great weekend. I really did. I think my thought about Milwaukee is, hey, everybody who said we shouldn't go back to Milwaukee, and it was too, we shouldn't go back to old places, and what was the other one? Oh, no one shows up to ovals. What's another one?
We don't live in the past like the vest. We can't live in those racetracks like the vest says we can't.
Yeah, we can't live in the past. All this nonsense and horse pucky, and that the fans would never support something that they actually wanted. By the way, I bet you guys are all going to buy the video game in about a year and a half, and they're going to be surprised by that too. I mean, it's at the end of the day, man, Milwaukee has become just this awesome race. I mean, and again, yes, like a few cynical people have said, well, it was going to be boring and Palou was going to run away with it if the rain didn't show up. And sure, why not? We can say that. But then even if it had been a boring race, in which I didn't even think it was that boring, you had an incredible crowd. I thought it was, and again, can we make it bigger? Yeah, sure. 100%. We could sell another 10,000, well, maybe not 10,000 tickets, but let's say 5,000 tickets. Absolutely. Let's open up the Turn 1 grandstands. Let's get those things full. But it's trending in the right direction. That was a better crowd than was there last year. It was just as enthusiastic. It was just as filled with IndyCar merchandise. It was filled with a few David Land t-shirts. Hi, shout out to everybody who bought those at Milwaukee. And it was awesome. I mean, it was just... Milwaukee continues to be one. I'm going to call it a crown jewel. I'm going to call it a crown jewel of the IndyCar Championship. I think it's starting to become a race that not only the fans support, but I think the industry is going to start circling that one on the calendar and go, we want to win here because it's a headline generator.
Yeah, I want a little bit more laps. We had 225. I think 250 is all good by me. Maybe more. But man, what a weekend it was! First time winner, as mentioned, and I think that's where we should start is with Christian Rasmussen. Obviously, when we were sitting here last week, we were discussing, him and Connor Daly, and there's drama, and hey, we're going to go to the oval. And the same oval last year that Christian Rasmussen didn't leave Graham Rahal enough room. He ended up crashing, and that ended Graham's day. Boys, we were sitting together. I thought Rasmussen in the first half of that race was going to wreck that thing at least another 20 times. He gets around Palou, and I'm going, all right, just settle in, dude. You don't need to lap Louis Foster. You don't need to put these cars a lap down. You've got a 3-4 second lead. Just don't J.R. Hildebrand it and bring this bad boy home. And that's what happened. And then, I'll say this. I've known Christian since 2019. I spotted for him once, as you see there. I've told you this before, David. I think, Kyle, you've heard the conversation as well. He was probably 19 years old when I first met him, and you can just tell the drivers that have it. And when I say have it, it's the drivers that keep their foot in the gas. It's the drivers that probably have girlfriends or have at least woken up next to a girl at one point in their life, if you catch my drift. And Jesus. He has proved at Indy, even though, he spun, I think in that Monday practice, might have had 2 spins this year in practice at the Indianapolis 500. That dude's going to be on edge. And I talked to Ed on Saturday. I said, hey, is there anything that you've talked to Christian about? He goes, I don't want him to change anything. I don't want him to change anything. And I said, he reminds me of a young Russell Westbrook in the NBA. Like, it's 110 miles an hour, or it's 110% all the time. And once you back that down to 100%, you're not as good. You're not getting the most out of yourself. And I feel like that's what we have in Christian Rasmussen, who gets it done. Really good day. Fred Carpenter racing. Alexander Rossi comes home 4th, climbs out of the car, runs by me, tries to get the victory circle, and doesn't know where to go. So if you saw that video, I kind of guide him to the backside. So that awesome celebration with both drivers still with their helmets on, which I thought was so badass, was super cool. And I'm with you, David. I love Milwaukee. It is a great track. It was very dicey. Obviously, Nolan Siegel did not have a good day with that accident, but Will Power got into it with Kiffin. We're going to discuss that. I know that he gave you a quote after the race on Sunday. I was standing there, but the investment that ECR has in IndyCar, and obviously they have Splenda and Java House and Heartland Foods, an Indiana-based company that has came in and really revamped that team. And I think we had kind of been waiting, guys, to say, okay, when's that breakthrough moment for Ed Carpenter Racing? And a lot of people said, oh, well, it was Gateway. He finishes on the podium. That's going to be their peak. Lo and behold, we get to Milwaukee, and Christian Rasmussen gets it done. So it's good to see a team like Ed Carpenter Racing that, hasn't really been in contention for wins outside of maybe Gateway with Rasmussen if a yellow would have went his way. But it's nice to see a team other than what we've seen this year in Penske. I think everybody would say the top tiers are Ganassi, Penske, Andretti, McLaren, and then there's another separate group of teams that once every couple of years, Ray Hall with Lundgaard a few years ago, gets a victory. So I thought it was great overall. I mean, I thought it shut up a lot of people that had a lot to say about Christian after Portland. And we talked to him. They obviously met at Java House, him and Connor Daly. Connor had a good run going in that first stint of the race, then kind of faded. But, man, I'm so happy to see Christian Rasmussen win. I am a big fan of his. I make no, I don't keep that private. People know that. But it was really, really cool to see. And what a thrilling ending there. Yeah, like you said, David, did it take a couple of sprinkles to make that happen? Absolutely. But you know what? We're talking about it. We're excited about it. And I think a weekend where we were kind of, I don't want to say sputtering with the tires, but there were points of the weekend where we're like, all right, like, okay, is something going to pop off? Is something going to happen? Are we like, what's going to get us going? And I think me talking to TK, you talking to Chip, really got the wheels going. Sometimes on a 2-day show, it's like, all right, you're trying to be jam-packed into things. But overall, super happy for Christian and Ed Carpenter Racing.
Kyle, when did you know that Rasmussen was going to win the race? Because you called that like right off the rip on the restart.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was towards the end after the. So what was funny is like to give some context to what we were doing. We sat in the stands for about 200 laps, and then with 50 to go, we went and got the camera equipment. And when we were going into the infield is when it started sprinkling. And all of us were kind of like, oh, like this is going to be a yellow. This is a thing. And I was gathering up my camera and stuff when everyone pit. So like, I didn't know that Rasmussen and only a select few had taken tires. I thought everybody came in and got tires. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a restart where it's kind of going to be Palou running away. And then once we realized we just happened to be by Rasmussen's pit box when it happened, right? Like, I don't think we were there knowing something was going to happen, but then it just started happening. And I remember David saying to me, he's like, oh, he's going to definitely get to second. I don't know if he's going to get Palou though. And I looked at him, I was like, this is like Malukas at Gateway a couple years ago. Like, he's actually going to make the run, but I saw 20 laps to go and how quickly, like, it was a position a lap. And I'm like, he has 20 laps to go and chase down Palou. Like, I think he's going to get this thing. And so, yeah, it was about 7 or 8 laps before it actually happened when I said, yeah, this is happening. Because I was not aware. And what I thought was most incredible when you look back on it all is Rasmussen had to pass Pato and Rossi as well on that restart with fresh tires. It wasn't him just passing guys who were on old tires. He just went and did that, which I think is probably the most impressive, because it's one thing to Ryan Hunter-Reay on a restart like he did in 2014, where you're just video game passing everybody on old tires. But, you know, Pato, Rossi, there was Newgarden maybe, but a couple guys, 4th, 5th, and 6th had fresh tires, and they weren't able to pass McLaughlin or Palou, and Rasmussen did. So I think that's also a big part in how incredible this win was for Rasmussen.
He passed probably, because he also passed like 3 or 4 lap cars to get to Palou. So, I mean, he was an animal on that restart. And I think that's a really strong point. And I think that's something that, I mean, it was brought up post-race, but I feel like we need to emphasize it, is the fact that outside of Christian, no one challenged McLaughlin or Palou on new tires. So it wasn't, and we were kind of watching some of the telemetry throughout the race, and really the difference between new tires and old tires wasn't as big as it has been in the past. It was really only about 2 miles an hour a lap. Because I know when Rossi would do the undercut, we'd kind of look at it, you know, the difference between him and Palou was like on 45 lap old tires at that point. And again, it was only about 2 miles an hour. So Christian, you know, we can kind of give him, you know, we can kind of say, oh, well, yes, he had a tire advantage, but he's still, you know, what the tire advantage wasn't as big as
Pato and Rossi had fresh tires too. Like they were on the same boat as Rasmussen. They didn't get the win.
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's a full credit to ECR. It's a full credit to Rasmussen. It's a legit win. It's not just because he put on tires and suddenly he had video game speed.
Yeah, I mean, you had to be there, right? And he was making moves throughout the entire race. There is a comment, I want to mention this, and it's from Grumpy Stiltskin, so obviously take it with a grain of salt. So he wins, and he's suddenly not an asshole anymore, not in my book. I wouldn't say that Christian Rasmussen is an asshole. I've never felt that way. Do I think he's an aggressive, elbows-out driver? Yeah. Do I think that makes him one of the most exciting drivers in the sport? Absolutely. Do I think the sport needs that? 100%. So that's where I stand on some of the hate that maybe people are going to say about Christian Rasmussen.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all amplified because of what happened at Portland. I mean, it's all we're just hot off the heels of that. And this I pointed this out a couple to maybe, I don't know if I said it publicly or not, but I'll say it here. Is this reminds me a lot of the 2-race stretch in 2019 when Sato caused a huge crash at Pocono and then comes back the next weekend amidst a ton of criticism and wins at Gateway. I mean, it feels exactly, maybe not exactly like that, but it feels very similar to that. So again, it's just like an amplification of like attention on one driver, and then all of a sudden, oh, he wins the next race. It's honestly, kind of funny how that works.
You know, shout out to the script writers. This is honestly the best case scenario, right? Like kind of like the Sato deal. Like, man, like for Rasmussen to get his first win, like this is the best time, right? I mean, I can see it. I don't think this. I think that there's still a discussion to be had, and there were a few points during the race on Sunday where I was still on some of the moves Rasmussen was doing on some of the veterans, where I was like, man, I'm surprised that, you know, like Dixon doesn't go into the next corner and just wipe the air off out in front of him. Like I remember a discussion where I think it was Dario had mentioned that, you know, or someone had mentioned that like TK was the guy who would just the next race. Or it was Graham. Yeah. Graham talking about how, you know, Dario or TK would go into the corner and just take the air off you just to scare you. And I was surprised that, Rasmussen hasn't been given that yet by some of the old guard in the series. And there were a few moments during the race on Sunday where I saw some things and some battles and was kind of surprised by it.
Dixon chopped someone in the race. I saw going down to one. I think it might have been Kirkwood.
Yeah,
he chopped the hell out of somebody. I think it was Kirkwood. But yeah, no. So, but I don't know if was Dixon ever really around Rasmussen during the race? I don't think
at one point, yeah, I remember. Because that's the crazy part is Rasmussen. He was running for like 8th or 9th all day.
Yeah,
like he was in the thick of it.
And Tony's absolutely right. By the way, every time that car came off of 4, it was loose. I mean, visibly loose.
So many wiggles.
Yeah.
I mean, I was waiting for him to lose it, and it wasn't even at times where he was making passes or being passed. And he was doing it to Alexander Rossi. There was a point where they were probably, I think, running 7th or 8th. That Rossi would drive in behind and try to make the move, and Rasmussen would just move down a lane, or he'd drive up behind somebody. I want to say it was maybe Christian Lundgaard that Rasmussen drove up on and was not going to give an inch. And you know what? As a race car driver, I'm not mad that is going on. I mean, if that's my car, if that's my driver and I own that car, I take the excitement. Yeah, there's going to be, trust me, the 3 of us and everybody in this chat, all 200 of you know right now, there's going to be a time where it's going to buck him, where he's going to end up in the wall. He's going to piss off somebody else again for sure. But it was a great day for Ed Carpenter Racing. Dennis Hauger wins the Indy Next Championship. Salvador de Alba wins the race. So we had 2 first-time winners on Sunday, which was cool. David, let's get to a little bit of the drama, a little bit of the controversy inside of the race, which was Kyffin Simpson. Seemed like he had gotten choppy with Joseph Newgarden, and he certainly got choppy with Will Power. I know you and I talked to Will Power. It is in your recap video. What'd you learn from Will, and have we gone back and looked at the tape any further to see what Kyffin Simpson was out there doing?
I'll be honest, I didn't go back and look at it. It seemed like Fox did Fox interview Will? Because
I don't believe so.
Yeah, because I was kind of surprised that wasn't more of a story. Again, I didn't see a replay of it, so I'm not gonna I'm just gonna go off of what Will told me and what was published on my video, and that was that he had seen Kyffin. I think he even mentioned. I'd have to go back and watch what he said, but I think he said even throughout the season, Kiffin's kind of been chopping Penske cars, and especially he mentioned that he'd done it at Milwaukee, and so he was pretty upset with Kyffin. Blamed him for the accident, said he chopped him in 2 and then chopped him going into 3, and that's when he got pushed up into the wall and ultimately ended his race. I mean, but by the same token, I should say that, if you're Will Power, and I think we're all aware of the situation, most especially Will Power is aware of the situation, and most of us believe, and not that I know anything, but I get the sense from Will that Will suspects what we suspect, and that this was the second to last race that Will Power is going to be driving that 12 car, and so anything that frustrates him is going to be amplified.
100%, great point.
And so this was a race that was frustrating for him last year. If you think back, he probably should have won. I believe it was race 2 when Palou had his issues with the hybrid. And he blew it on a restart, spun out in turn 4, and cost himself a bunch of points and positions. So I think Will was trying to get redemption. He was running at the front of the field. I mean, he battled for most of the first third of that race with Pato, and would have been in position towards the end of it had he stayed out of trouble, which of course he didn't. But again, that's kind of why, if you watched my video, the last question I asked him was, how important is it to Will Power to go to Nashville and perform there? And again, he knows the gravity of the situation, and he knows how important it is to go out on top with Team Penske. And, for him to not be able to capitalize on Milwaukee, where we know the Team Penske cars are so good, again, it's kind of surprising that we aren't talking about a Team Penske win. I think a lot of us I think all three of us picked a Penske car in one way, respect or the other. I could be wrong about that. I know for a fact I picked Joseph. I think one of you picked McLaughlin, and maybe we had a Malukas pick. I don't remember, but that by extension, as Kyle Kirkwood said to me this weekend, he might as well be a Penske car at this point. So, to leave, and here's the thing: Will Power was so confident in Team Penske this weekend at the bullpen, he predicted they were going to sweep the podium.
Yep,
so
he did.
He had such confidence, and to see that confidence completely taken away from him, 2 races to go potentially in his Penske career. Yeah, of course he's going to be ripping the guy that took him out of the race. But is there validity to that? Who knows?
Well, and you just hope, again, some of these things aren't amplified at probably, I would say this is the most high-speed track outside of IMS that we go to coming up this weekend in Nashville, which we will get to. Man, there's been so much. We're going to get to Dude Bro sources because I think we've heard Will Power tied to probably every race car in the paddock.
Except for Coyne.
We learned some things over the weekend. But I want to talk about something that I believe is going to happen. Now, I've spoke on my podcast. I think I've said it on this show. We get tired as IndyCar fans of IndyCar writing checks that they cannot cash when it comes to the marketing department, when it comes to these things that all of us know will help move the series and the sport forward. I had a sit-down interview on Saturday with Tony Kanaan, and I said, do we need to go back to high-speed ovals? And he said, Tony, we need people to know who we are. We need people to know that we are coming to their town this weekend to put on a great show. We need people to know that we're not Formula One. We're a competitive open wheel series that you can come out and see on oval, street courses, road courses. And I said, that's an excellent point. The Vest tried to get it done for years. Doug Bowles has been there for 6 months. Goes to iRacing. What do we got to do to get this done? And I believe this is going to happen. I know people are going to say, believe it when we see it. But iRacing is too strong of a company, too respected of a company in the motorsports world for this not to happen. Looks like mid-2026, we will have an IndyCar game for the first time since, I believe, 2003, besides maybe the Wii game that I don't think really took off as much as they wanted it to, because it wasn't you could go run every track, every car. But the first time we're going to have a console game since 2003. There are people in this chat, guys, that weren't even born when the last race came out. I can't wait. I'm excited for it. Your thoughts, David, when we heard that news this morning?
Okay, so real quick, I want to clean up the history of the video game, because so you're right. The last video game was based on 2003, but it came out in 2004 and was branded as IndyCar 2005. So that was the last one based on a current season. Now, you mentioned the historical game called Indy 500 Evolution. The last iteration of that came out in 2009. Again, we're not even in the 2010s yet, which is tough. IndyCar has had collaborations with different video game companies before. They've been in Forza, they've been in Project Cars, they've been in iRacing, but obviously they haven't had a standalone video game since 2004, almost 20 or over 20 years now. And as I said in my video, really closer to a quarter of a century, which is almost mind-boggling to wrap your head around, that a major sporting event like the Indianapolis 500 really hasn't been represented properly for that long. So today's announcement is extremely important, I think. You're right, Tony, that iRacing is going to get it done. I have full faith that this project will get across the finish line. They have history. In fact, the first IndyCar, well, not the first IndyCar video game, but the first proper IndyCar sim was produced by the company that iRacing used to be known as, which was called Papyrus. They also produced IndyCar 1 in 1993 and IndyCar 2 in 1995, which people are still making content for. I just recently saw GP Laps put force feedback into IndyCar Racing 2. So there's a lot of love around, or a lot of history and a lot of love with this studio and this series. So again, I would be absolutely floored if this doesn't happen. And to your other point, Tony, before we kind of get into the discussion about how important this is from a fan base, growing the fan base perspective. I also have to sing the praises of the Doug Bulls leadership so far of IndyCar. And, you look at a lot of the things, I mentioned this in my video, but a lot of things seem to be moving forward that were, for whatever reason, stuck in the IndyCar world. Why wasn't there a video game for so long? Why were the video games rights handed exclusively to a company that didn't necessarily have an ability to complete the project that they were assigned? There were a lot of questions about those sort of things, and Doug and the team at IndyCar got this deal done, and it's with the right company. It's with a company that's going to make it happen, and full credit to them. We have a target date set for the next car. Is it the date that I would like? Is it the formula that I would like to see? No. But again, if it makes the partners that are currently, on the fence about being committal to IndyCar commit to IndyCar, then I've got no problem with that either. I think this, again, everything that I keep hearing about the schedule going forward, I think it's going to be a crowd-pleasing schedule. I think people are really going to be excited to see what's on it. There's obviously still things that need to be done. There's changes that still need to be made with IndyCar. But if you look at this, especially considering what happened in 2022 with the Motorsport Games exclusive license and the loss of the license to iRacing and all of that drama, this has just been a really positive day for IndyCar racing. And Kyle, I suppose I'll bring you in here because I think you're pretty good, although I don't think you have a PowerPoint this time. I think you can give me a mental PowerPoint of exactly why this is so important from the perspective of, younger fans, getting them involved, getting them engaged, because at least from my perspective, and this is the way I've always argued it, is that if we're going to have a 6-month season, you need to have different ways to engage with IndyCar in that other 6 months and learn and have fun and be able to play with your friends in this great sandbox of ours. And I think a video game does an incredibly good job of keeping people engaged when there is no racing going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge. I was just thinking the other day, it was kind of funny how the timing of this worked out, because I was thinking yesterday about F1, because I thought about it, and because I was kind of explaining, Drive to Survive wasn't until 2017, and to me, F1 wasn't really a current event until 2021, until that season happened. But what kept me in F1 that entire time leading up to that was the video games. Like, thinking back to me at like 9 years old, what kept F1 in my brain as a racing fan at 9 years old? It was having F1 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14 through 15. I have them all on disc at home. Like, that was what kept me in F1, what kept it relevant in my brain. And so the fact that IndyCar doesn't have anything currently, I think that it doesn't help. I think, and mostly for the racing fan, like, you're going to get a lot of people who buy the game, a lot of kids who buy the game who are unaware of IndyCar, unaware of racing, sure. But I think it's mostly for the racing fans in the United States, right? Like, it's going to be for those kids who are NASCAR fans or F1 fans who, maybe they pick up the game 2 years later on a $5 Steam sale. But being able to have a game where you can play the career mode and get beat by Alex Palou every week in the game, then hey, that's the guy. That's the guy in IndyCar that is really cool. And it's going to elevate the drivers, I think, a lot too, because you're going to go to races. You have kids going to races and saying, hey, that's the guy that I cursed out or got mad at in the video game the other day. Like, I was you're going to go to a race and be like, oh, I'm going to spam, arcade races at Mid-Ohio all week because I'm excited for there's just a lot of aspects to having this game that is going to be, I think, huge for the sport, moving it forward and just, elevating it. And huge shout out to Doug Bulls. And like you said, just incredible to get this done finally. And I'm very excited to play. I'm excited to have St. Pete in a game. I'm excited to have all these tracks too that aren't iRacing that you can't play anywhere. You know what I mean?
A couple of things. Go ahead, David.
I just wanted to say one thing about the ability to go and play a video game. Like, Kyle, you mentioned the F1 2010, right? That was such a, I think we all, that was such a pivotal game, but one of the biggest points that I think you just made, Kyle, was not just not just the fact that kids are going to pick this up, but I think and this is selfish for me, but one of the things that really drove F1 forward in that kind of dead period at the end of the Ecclestone era, where there wasn't a lot of opportunities for content creators to create any kind of content around Formula One because the FIA and FOM were so litigious, they just would take any video down. What didn't get taken down, and where a lot of content creators who are still creating content in Formula One and have millions of subscribers still to this day, was playing F1 video games on YouTube and Twitch. I think what this video game potentially is going to do is allow an opportunity for new content creators to create content around this IndyCar video game and grow in popularity and grow into something that will lift the sport up, move the sport forward. And I think that's a huge opportunity that has been missed over the last 20 years with the rise in video games, with the rise in content creation, with the rise in all this, almost, one of the things about Formula One that works so well is it is truly a lifestyle brand. Even back when it was the secret handshake, that's how I always describe Formula One and the era that I grew up in, right? Like the late V10, early V8 era. If someone said Fernando Alonso or somebody said Sebastian Vettel, you went, holy cow, you're just as weird as I am. But even then, you could then play the video game or watch a bizarre meme on the internet, and you guys would have something to bond over. Well, now, as things have moved on and meme culture is such a thing and content creation is such a huge thing, having a video game as a central hub for young people to share their love of IndyCar, I mean, I don't think we realize, especially if it's good. I mean, first of all, it's got to be good. If it's bad, none of this applies. But if this video game is halfway good, halfway decent, if it's playable, if it's fun, if it creates a community, I don't think we're ready for the impact that something like this could have on the fan base.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a couple things for me. You guys are a little bit more into it than I am, but I just think it'd be cool. I know people mention this in the chat, different liveries for each team, maybe 2 or 3 different ones if they have that. Maybe it's something that you can unlock as you advance in the game would be cool. Create your own liveries, those type of stuff I think would be cool. And as you guys mentioned, even at the racetrack, you could have a setup of 3 or 4 or 5 sims where people can race, and maybe iRacing really gets involved. And, you could do a contest where somebody creates a livery for, the Renus Ask ROI car, just for an example, something along those lines. And this is why I'm confident that this will happen. What have I said about the vests and his people? It's like, hey, we're partnering with these second and third companies that we don't really even know, right? Like the Motorsports Gaming just felt like, oh, they were the only people that we had a chance to do it with. Parkside's done an okay job, but it's not a household name. They've been partnering with non-household names, and I think iRacing, especially in the racing sphere, is known in the NASCAR world, the dirt world, IndyCar. People know what iRacing is, and I think they're going to want to be a part of that. I think it'll be cool. I definitely want to race the Indy Next car. If that's in there, I want to do the Freedom.
That is in the game.
Save the Freedom 100. I think I watched our boy who's in the chat today, Krista Hardy, wrecking the pylon last year, so I want to be a part of that. But, I mean, this is a win for IndyCar, and as much as I and a lot of us crap on what they do, this is a win. They finally got it done. I'm glad Doug got it done. Obviously, he probably knows some people over at iRacing. He's in a way a racer himself. So super cool to see. The opportunities are endless on what you could do with this video game, and I can't wait for it.
I think the big part of this news that is kind of like the smaller piece of it all is that Indy Next is going to be in the game.
Yep.
Like they're adding Indy Next to iRacing. Like think about where Indy Next
value to those cars.
Yeah, think about where Indy Next was 2 years ago. Where the biggest fault was, hey, we can't. How are we supposed to find any money to go race these things if nobody cares or nobody knows what it is? And now every race is on Fox Sports 1. It's on TV. Every set qualifying is on TV now. That's huge. And now you can have your sponsor paint scheme driver in a video game. That's insane. So huge shout out to having Indy Next in the game as well. That's crazy.
That is huge, especially for some of those teams that are struggling to maybe put budgets together. 1.2, 1.3 million is what I keep hearing for an Indy Next budget. And being on Fox Sports 1, being in a video game adds more money when you are trying to attract new sponsors, not only to IndyCar, but also to the Indy Next paddock. So great point there. Hopefully they'll allow us on this game to run at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the oval in an Indy Next car. All right, guys, this is going to be a scrambled egg, dude bro sources, because we have heard everything.
I hate eggs.
In the book. Do what?
I said I hate eggs.
He hates eggs.
Well, I don't know why. The eggs at Honda were excellent over the weekend. Obviously, the first domino is willpower, and I think that we have heard him tied to every team, almost besides Penske. Every realistic team, let's say, except for Penske. I think the Palou to Red Bull rumors are absolute BS. I don't see that happening. David, let's start there. Your thoughts with that hat you got on there. Your thoughts on some of the rumors that have been mentioned by the Indianapolis Star on whether or not we will see Alex Palou make the switch to Formula One.
Well, we're constantly evaluating any and all future programs. Oh, sorry, I'm not actually the Red Bull PR guy. Okay. So a little confession. I also heard this rumor on Portland weekend, and so here's the thing. Anytime, because this has come up a couple of times with Palou in Formula One, and I could say that with pretty strong clarity that Red Bull's not the only team that Alex Palou has been tied to in the last 2 years, and we're not including McLaren in that too. And anytime you ask, or if you kind of sniff around, the answer is always, hey, have you considered that Alex Palou has a child who is growing up in the United States? He's building a house in Indianapolis. His family's here. His life is here. His career is here. Would he want to go back to Europe to pursue that dream and take the risk on Formula One? Now, I was a bit cheeky in my Portland video because I did give a real opinion about a hypothetical situation. And my real opinion is this. I do think that, despite the fact that Chip was very bullish when it came up, and I believe him, that at least at this time, no one has approached or spoken to Alex Palou or Chip Ganassi about taking this Formula One contract if Red Bull is indeed sniffing around with Alex. But I think you would be, depending on what the deal is, I think if there is a deal, first of all, if there is a deal, and depending on what that deal is, I think Alex should at least consider it. Now, all that being said, right now Red Bull is Adrian Newey-less. They've just lost Christian Horner. They've got a new team principal. Max Verstappen is still there. You've got new power plant for next year, a Red Bull designed internal combustion engine paired with a Ford electrical or a Ford battery and hybrid unit. So it's going to be a totally, and obviously the regulations are totally different in 2026 for Formula One. So it would be a very tough situation for Alex to jump into. First of all, you'd be competing directly against the driver that most people consider to be the best in Formula One right now, which is Max Verstappen. You would potentially be going into a situation that would be that has been extremely difficult for anyone stepping into the second Red Bull seat. No one has succeeded in that since Max Verstappen has been at Red Bull. And purely from a selfish, and again, I'm going to be selfish here as someone who's primarily rah IndyCar, believe it or not. I think that Alex Palou, who has been so dominant this year, who has looked so good this year, who has looked so inevitable, unbeatable, one of the best drivers in the world, if not the best driver in the world this year, for him to go to Formula One, and if he doesn't at least beat Max Verstappen, and much less win a race, all of these pressure point things, there's a tremendous risk. It's not like going to Red Bull 2 or 3 years ago where it's an absolute no-brainer. This would be an extreme risk, and that's even if it's real. And we still don't know if it's real. I know the rumor was floating around. That didn't come out of nowhere. I can 100% say that with certainty. But do I think that Alex Palou would actually take it? It would be such a risk. It would be such a risk. And I just, we've talked about it on this show quite a few times. At the very least, in 2026, the package that Alex is being so dominant with is not changing. If Honda stays, that package stays for 2027. So the next 2 years, you could have essentially the exact same car, the exact same tires, the exact same engine, the exact same chassis. He could drive the same car for 3 more years and win just as much, if not more, in IndyCar racing. And we've seen throughout the years, Juan Pablo Montoya, Alex Zanardi, Cristiano D'Amata. The only person who was successful really making this jump was Jacques Villeneuve in 1995. He went on to win the World Championship, and it was because he got into the best car at Williams. He still didn't win the championship in the first year. He got beat by Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher. So do I think that if this does eventually come on to Alex's desk, that he wouldn't seriously consider signing it? I think you have to take a look at it. But I think
how much does winning the Indianapolis 500 this year maybe change what he would think about doing that, knowing that, hey, I've got the championships, I've won the 500, and I can always come back to IndyCar in 3 to 4 years?
Well, that's what Montoya thought, and that's what Villeneuve thought. So at least that from that math perspective, pretty cut and dry, I'd say.
So basically what we're saying is Alex Palou is going to go to F1 for a few years and then come back and go to NASCAR?
Oh, God. Well,
Chip will welcome. Chip
coming back to NASCAR.
Chip will buy into a team again. He'll be back.
Well, what's so funny is that there was a virtual press conference today where we're getting a lot of this information from Chip, and one of the questions came from Matt Weaver. I believe it was the second question. He said, "Hey, has Honda approached you about going back to NASCAR?" And you know what? Maybe Matt was on to something. Maybe Palou's going to go to Formula One for a year, and he's going to come back, and he's going to drive for Chip and NASCAR with a Honda. There you go. Boom. We figured it out. Problem solved.
I would say this. I don't think that he goes. Maybe he does. You make some money. You either keep the house here, or you can sell the house. And I'm only going to say this because we saw her over the weekend, and I don't like to get too far into the woods when it comes to drivers' families, but he has a young daughter that hasn't started school yet. And from the people that I've talked to with kids, if you're going to do a move, you want to do it before they start school. So maybe this is the right time. I've done everything that I can do. I've dominated IndyCar. Let's go try a new challenge. Let's go see what this looks like. Let's make a boat ton of money. And we can always come back. We've said this about Colton Herta. You can always come back. But again, if you're asking for my opinion, I don't think that he's going anywhere anytime soon. With that being said, another rumor that came to mind this weekend that we had heard Friday, and then the Indianapolis Star happened to run with it, was the possibility of Colton Herta going to F2, which would open up a seat at Andretti Global for possibly Will Power. David, when we learned of that rumor on Friday, you've had a few days to digest it. We've talked to a lot of people about it. At first, it didn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense. But now I think we've had a couple nights sleeps on it. Maybe that's something that is in consideration for Colton Herta.
Yeah, it's all very interesting, isn't it? Because the first thing that really came up about all of this, the smoke was kind of rising in Laguna Seca, where I heard that Will Power could go to Andretti, and I was kind of like, okay, well, how would that work? And, I'd also heard some things about, possibly Marcus Ericsson getting his contract bought out. So that was one of those things where I was like, well, maybe that's how that works. Otherwise it doesn't make much sense, because you wouldn't sit there and consider that Colton Herta would go to Formula 2 to try to get a super license to go racing in Formula One. Everybody seems to keep saying when it comes up that, well, Colton's too old. He's too old to complete the training. It doesn't make any sense, at least, in the conversations you have with people in the industry. We've been having, how long has Colton been tied to Formula One? Since 2021? Maybe even before then, right? And like everybody keeps saying he's too old, he's too old, he's too old, he's too old, he's too old. And like we keep getting further and further down the line. It just keeps seeming like, well, that dream's got to be dead at this point, right? And then all of a sudden we get this rumor, and when you hear it, you kind of scratch your head and you go, really? This all seems very complicated, but I don't know. The more you think about it, he's being paid an awful lot of money to race for Andretti and IndyCar. Clearly, Dan Tauris believes in his talent. Otherwise, he wouldn't pay him that much money. There are people within the sport who I absolutely trust to evaluate drivers much better than I. And there's at least one person who has told me straight up, Colton Herta is exactly he's the perfect Formula One driver. He drives exactly the way that you would drive fast in Formula One. So, if this makes sense, if the end goal here is to get an American driver driving for Cadillac in Formula One, and he's already got some super license points, he doesn't have enough of them. Formula 2 probably overvalues itself, which makes sense because it is the feeder system directly below Formula One. There's no shortage of money at Andretti Global, so they can either buy Colton a seat or, worst case scenario, they could just start their own team and go race in Formula 2 and try to get him the super license points. I believe he could finish something like 8th in the championship, do a couple of test days for Cadillac, and he would have a super license. So the same risk applies, though, that I just mentioned with Alex Palou, but it's amplified because he's going to essentially a feeder series after racing in what we consider to be a top-level championship, at least I consider to be a top-level championship, and it is this. If Colton Herta goes to Formula 2 and just absolutely lays an egg and looks like shit, that doesn't do us any good from a perspective of IndyCar racing, U.S. racing, American open wheel racing. I mean, you think about the damage that Michael Andretti's tenure in Formula One did to U.S. open wheel racing and the perception of it in Formula One. It wasn't good. So there's a lot of risk associated with something like this if it is true. But it makes sense to a certain extent. And God, I wonder, is Nashville going to be Colton Herta's last IndyCar race?
And then let me ask you this to wrap this up. We obviously got the announcement of the Cadillac drivers today. Obviously, two veteran drivers that know how to race in Formula One. What were your thoughts when we learned the driver lineup? Were you surprised? And knowing that they brought in two veteran drivers, does that maybe say, okay, maybe that sets something up for a newbie in Colton Herta to join the team in 2027 and beyond?
Yeah, you couldn't. I mean, the minute they announced that team, I think everybody knew it was Bottas and Perez. I don't know why there were so many rumors to the contrary of that. It always seemed like those were the two drivers that were going to get it. And honestly, it's not the worst idea in the world for Cadillac to bring in two highly experienced drivers, two drivers who have raced for two of the time. I mean, just a couple of years ago, we were talking about 2021 Formula One. Bottas was driving for Mercedes and Perez was driving for Red Bull. So, these are drivers who are not, who are very highly touted, who have been highly touted, who have been given the best seats in Formula One. And you don't get the best seats in Formula One if you're not deserving of them. But again, at least from what I heard today, I don't know if this is public information, but we're going to throw it out there as a Dude Bro source. Sounds like both of those drivers are on one-year deals in 2026. So presumably, if this is true with Colton and Colton gets a super license, you would take the best of the two drivers from last year or from 2026, and then you would pair them with Herta in 2027. I would imagine that Bottas is probably going to outdo Perez, but we don't know. That would be my guess, though, for the driver lineup in 2027 if all this is true. But no surprises whatsoever with this driver lineup. Again, I feel like the minute they announced it, everybody knew what the driver lineup was going to be.
Nuke Shot mentions Bottas has said that he'd like to run Indianapolis 500. Would he be a candidate for an extra Andretti car? I would imagine that conversation comes up. I do believe Marco Andretti runs next year's Indianapolis 500, and that'll be his last 500. I want to go back, David, and get your opinion on this when it comes to Alex Palou. Is there anything that you could see with the lawsuit and what happened with Zach Brown and McLaren? And when they settle, which I was told could be coming here in the next couple of months, in that settlement, is there something that says Alex Palou is not going to Formula One unless he's in one of my cars, and we're not putting him in one of my cars, so therefore he's not going to Formula One?
Well, I don't know enough about the legal process to go like, yeah, this is how Zach Brown's going to, how they're going to settle the lawsuit. I would be surprised by that, to be honest with you. What I think the real issue would be whatever the settlement payment is, or maybe a buyout clause with Chip Ganassi. I think that might be the biggest hurdle. I guess the only way that Palou would agree to something like that as a stipulation would be if this rumor is completely nonsense, right? Which it very well could be. If he truly is committed to IndyCar racing and he has no interest in going to Formula One, then yeah, absolutely. If that gets me off the hook in this lawsuit, if that allows us to settle this thing and put it behind us, hell yeah, I'm going to do it. Because I'm still going to beat your ass and up and down the street in IndyCar racing for the next few years. So what do I care? But yeah, no. I mean, again, I don't know enough about the legal process. I'm literally just spitballing here. But I don't think I would I wouldn't agree to that if I had a choice. I'll put it that way. But if I didn't believe I was going to Formula One or didn't want to go to Formula One, well, why the hell not? I could probably agree that I'll never go to Antarctica because I probably never will. If you wanted to get me out of some legal situation and say, well, David, you can never step foot in Antarctica again, I go, oh, well, okay, I suppose I'll have to agree to that.
To our guy, Nuke Shot Media, he would have laughed standing on the grid with us pre-race when Todd Alt, of all people, came up to say something to Marcus Ericsson, and I was just standing there going, and Marcus couldn't help but laugh, and I was like, you don't talk to him. No way, sir. All right, so Will Power is a domino that is going to fall. Where ultimately does he land? Because it seemed like Ray Hall had the pole position. Then Graham Rahal goes on Speed Street last week and kind of poo-poos that. Will asked us, the three of us standing there after the race, what we had heard. A new one was a driver swap of sorts, moving Will Power to AJ Foyt. Maybe that would help Foyt keep the Penske connection. Again, we've heard Andretti. We had heard rumors at the beginning of the summer that at Carpenter Racing had strong interest in Will Power. I think those have been shut down now that Christian Rasmussen found himself in Victory Circle right now. And we'll ask this for the next couple of weeks. David, where do you see Will Power landing?
Well, I will say this too. When the rumor of Red Bull came up, or Palou going to Red Bull, the suggestion was that Power would then take the 10 car, which again I don't believe. I'll put it this way: I'll believe that when I see it.
Hey,
but what's so fun? Yes,
Power has 40. I was doing some research here because you guys brought up super license. Power has 40 super license points. He's eligible. He could go to Racing Bulls. He could go to Alpine. Hey, if Herta's going to go to Europe, why not Power?
If Will Power went to Formula One, like that would be.
People are making fun of Cadillac being sponsored by AARP. You're going to add Will Power to that mix?
They should have.
Will did say, for what it's worth, he wants to race for 3 more years. And I said, don't put yourself in a car that you don't feel like you could win in. So I'm assuming Will is looking for a 2-year deal with a team or with a driver option for that 3rd year.
I've got it. Kyle, you shouldn't have said that. Because now I'm thinking, and my speculation brain is on.
Well, you obviously have the thinking cap on right now.
I do. The thinking cap's on. Adrian Newey designed it. You know what else Adrian Newey's designing next year? The Aston Martin. How about Fernando Alonso and Will Power, the old boy, Sonny Hayes?
Oh yeah,
they designed the car for combat.
That's got to be why Oriol Servia signed Will Power.
That's what I'm saying. It's the Spanish connection.
Yeah.
And then Alex Palou is going to be the reserve driver. It's going to be Team Spain and Team AARP Spain, because I think it's not even called Aston Martin. Didn't Lawrence Stroll completely buy it out? and then we'll send and then Lance Stroll drive the 10 car. Or no, sorry, Lance Stroll drive the 12
and
car.
He's driven for Ganassi before. Actually, wait, Lance Stroll has driven for Ganassi before. This is how this all unfolds.
Lance Stroll is going to drive the 10 car, and then
Lawrence?
Pelot's going to be in Formula One.
We
and
figured out all your issues.
We got it. So like in the next 2 years, we're going to have Colton Herta, Will Power, and Alex Palou in Formula One, and they're all going to be race winning contenders. It's going to be great. I can't wait. What a timeline to be alive. And then when they all flunk out of Formula One, they're all going to go drive for Honda and NASCAR. It's going to with Ganassi. Ganassi going to have a 5-car team. He's going to buy all of the 2311 charters. Have we run out of things? What else is topical?
Yeah. I mean, this is all just banter, but I think that this is just a token of how silly this silly season has been, and how I think, like, with Will being at the point where you can't, legally talk to teams, and it's kind of been decided, it's been known, I guess, that Penske's going to wait until Sunday. That at this point, every rumor that we're hearing is a rumor until Sunday. It's like a countdown of just, we're going to find out one thing or another next week, and then it all kicks off, right? Like,
and I told Will, I said, I just want you to know, as soon as you get out of that car, unless you win the race, which I hope you do, we're coming for you. We're coming for you.
We're gonna surround that car, and it's good. I mean, but like unless Penske goes over the radio and says, "Well, thanks for all the years, Will. See you over the radio." Like, what's that gonna do? What are we gonna do? We're gonna surround him, like, all right, talk.
Well, he said he's gonna go straight to RP1, so we should talk to him after that. So we'll let him get over to RP1, and hopefully his seatbelt stay on this year. And
I'm gonna be Mario here for a second, Tony. Mario Andretti, son, why are you giving away your secrets? What? Don't you just broadcasted that to everybody, dumbass?
Ain't nobody listen to this. Come on, you kidding me?
Oh, you don't. Hello, everybody listening to this. Hello, industry. I know you guys watch. Hello, industry. Jesus Christ.
The vest and his All-American rejects for sure. All right, Cusick Motorsports does have a announcement tomorrow. I think we're going to learn of a partnership with an Indy Next team. We're going to leave it at that. We don't want to spoil it for our friend Don Cusick, so be sure to check that out. So let's say Will Power is on the move, and there is a seat open at Foyt. I had heard possibly a Jacob Abel could end up there. I've heard a possibility of Miles Rowe with Jacob Abel. Is that where ultimately Dennis Hogger ends up? I think there was rumors last week that were false, obviously, of Juncos. I think the Foyt one maybe has a little bit more legs to it than the Juncos one does. What else do we have in the silly season? Ray Hall supposedly has an out with Devlin DeFrancesco if he doesn't finish inside of the top 22, and he would maybe still be on the hook financially for next year. What is the trickle-down effect, guys, of what we see once Will Power does, I believe, indeed leave Penske?
Well, everything gets blown open because when we talk to Rinus VeeKay, who does, there was an article that came out that said Coyne wants to commit to Rinus, but at least when you talk to Rinus, it sounds like he's not 100% committed to Coyne right now. I wonder if he's domino number 2 once Will Power goes off of the board. Obviously, we know Dennis Hauger has the paycheck from Indy Next, and again, as I've mentioned a couple of times on here, you don't get the Formula 2 with empty pockets either. So, he should be able to procure a full budget no matter where he ends up. I think you mentioned the Abel connection potentially at Foyt or somewhere else, especially if it's connected with Miles Rowe. I think that, Foyt has been capable of running 3 cars in the past. Maybe there's an opportunity there to do something with Jacob. But I think Miles was quoted as saying he's 50-50 on running Indy cars next year versus Indy Next. So, he doesn't say that for no reason, because Miles is actually pretty. Anytime I've talked to Miles about IndyCar racing, he's been very, very realistic about, where he stands and where, what opportunities might be there. And sometimes he's like, there are no opportunities. So for him to say something like that says to me there's a realistic chance that he's an IndyCar next year. And I think if you look at Foyt and the fact that they would like to keep that Penske connection going, Force Indy and partnering with them would be the way to do that. And of course, Foyt and Abel Motorsports are right across the street. If Jacob Abel has, if he doesn't return to the 51 car, again, maybe there's something that can be worked out there where he ends up in a seat somewhere at Foyt. So, yeah, I mean, that's speculation, of course. I don't really know anything past the what Miles has said and past the relationships that we know exist between a lot of these organizations. But, it's going to be pretty interesting. But again, this silly season has been so weird because it has hinged on exactly one driver. And unlike last year where we pretty much knew everything by the end of August, or really the end of July, the beginning of August, we don't have any of the people who are kind of like up in the air signed right now. None of them.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of different teams and drivers tied to each other. Ryan, who we saw at Milwaukee over the weekend, thanks for saying hello. What are your thoughts on Toby Sowery and Yuri Vips? We saw them both over the weekend in Milwaukee. Had a good conversation with Toby Sowery, who says, I mean, he's going to say whatever, same thing Yuri Vips has said. Like, I need money. I'd like to be in that car. I think if you're Rahal and you do decide to move on from Devlin, I think you have to go to Bobby's basement and either grab Yuri or grab Toby Sowery, right? Like, you can't have these kids stashed to the side. And then when a car does open up, like it did last year, and Louis Foster, who's battling for the Rookie of the Year this weekend, and Rahal has mentioned, hey, he is in our car for the next couple of years. I think that's the first place you need to look. As far as the 51 goes, it depends if maybe there's some buy-in to that team. I got the sense over the weekend, David, I'd ask you this as well, that more than likely Connor Daly is back at Juncos. Haven't really heard much about Stingray Robb. There's been some rumors. And then there's obviously the other team that is 1 week on and 1 week off, and that is what could we see for the future of a first-time team this year in Prema?
Yeah, what is going on with Prema is a great question. I mean, you're starting to see a lot of long faces around there is what you're seeing.
Unpaid faces.
You said that. Again, anytime that name comes up in the IndyCar paddock, and Marshall Pruitt had an article about this, so it is public knowledge, but like, man, not good from Prema's perspective. I think that team is at the very least branded as something different next year. Might not be on the grid at all next year. I mean, there's all sorts of different possibilities. That is going to be, that's actually one of the low-key, like, huge stories that we're not talking about yet. But I know for a fact, again, several of the last race weekends I've been to, I've spoken to people who are prospective or current team owners who have interest in buying some or any of Prema's equipment, driver talent, cars, haulers, anything. I mean, everything potentially is going to be for sale, and potentially nothing's going to be for sale. But one thing's for certain, I think, and I think you're going to see some changes there. In terms of Rahal, God, I still very much question the logic of having two reserve drivers on the team, and I think someone called them moral support drivers, which is just hilarious.
He hasn't even ran them this year. At least last year, I think Yuri Vips had a ride at maybe one or two races. Portland comes to mind. They haven't even – the only extra car they ran was for Sato at the 500. So it's. I asked Toby, I said, so what do you do during the week? Are you walking Bobby's dogs? Are you cutting his grass? And he's like, trying for next year, doing a lot of sim work.
Yeah. So I think from the perspective of like morality – from the perspective of fairness, you put one of those drivers in because they've been loyalty. Yeah, that's an important word, isn't it? One that I think Bobby Rahal used to describe a driver that was leaving his team for greener pastures at one point. I think you have to reward loyalty if you're in that position and you've made those kind of statements. But if a willpower comes available and a willpower is on the market and you can pay a willpower to drive that car, you'd be nuts to say no to it.
I just don't understand how Prema. The original number I was told was $30 million. Somebody mentioned over the weekend it's $40 million was the budget this year. that's mind-boggling to me how that can be spent. Obviously, you're paying for a lot of things up front, but to more than likely not have a charter next season, I think really handcuffs that team and the future, which is unfortunate because seeing new teams shows a sign of growth for the sport, and seeing what Schwartzman did on the pole to 500, seeing what he had a top 10 at Gateway as well, which I think was one of the more underrated runs that we've seen this season. And Colin Milot on the road courses throughout the month of July and August had 2 straight top 6s and 3 top 10s overall. So there is a lot of dominoes to fall. I'm not confident to say that we're going to start hearing stuff Sunday and Monday of next week, but that is certainly possible. We do head to Nashville this weekend. I think the storyline going into this weekend is just everybody throw the kitchen sink at everything and go for a race victory. I'm not saying that drivers and teams don't go for race victories, but I think we're going to see hopefully a lot of competition up towards the front. Obviously, Kyle Kirkwood won on the Roval this year, was on the pole this race last year. Colton Herta won this race last year. I think this is going to be one of the more competitive races we've seen in a long time.
Pure race, pure balls out oval racing. This is the kind of race that you'd see at the beginning of the season if there were ovals at the beginning of the season, but there aren't anymore. So, wink. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, no, the only thing that's on the line right now is a trophy. And for some people, leader circle, towards the back of the field, obviously the Rookie of the Year title, which Robert Schwartzman has kind of mentioned that he doesn't really care all that much about. So congratulations, Louis Foster, on the Rookie of the Year title for this year. But no, I think at the front of the field where, the first 2 positions in the championship are already decided, there's not a ton of prize money on the line for those different positions. Everybody's in the leader circle. So, let's see a race, man. I think this was a great race last year. I think we all wish it was under the lights because that would look absolutely awesome maybe next year. But I think it's going to be fun. Obviously we don't have the excitement of the championship battle coming down to the wire like we did last year. But I thought that the Music City Grand Prix last year, first year on the oval, was a lot of fun. It was a good race. Great finish between Colton and Pato and lap traffic. I think we're going to see more of the same.
Last game of the year, Brett, can't hold anything back. All right, there's a lot of Dude Bro sources that went on. One more thing I want to get into before we wrap up tonight. I didn't hear much of it over the weekend. Maybe you did, David. This schedule and when it's going to come out for the 2026 season. We obviously got the word that St. Pete, what weekend that would be on because of the NASCAR schedule being released and trucks coming to St. Pete, which I'm pretty damn excited about, to be honest with you. What do we know about the schedule? Anything new in the universe of going to Mexico and adding new races? Obviously, we're waiting on Toronto and the announcement of going to what looks to be a smaller airport, a little bit outside of the city, if I'm not mistaken. But what do we know about the schedule for 2026?
Yeah, it sounds like the schedule's coming in the next couple of weeks. It won't be coming Nashville weekend. You might get one announcement. We'll see. Mexico sounds like it's trending in a positive direction, which is good. And as you mentioned, some changes coming for Toronto. And like we said, what we've said it the last couple of weeks on this show, we're expecting some oval tracks still on the schedule, whether that's Iowa and a different race or whether that's a different race entirely. We're not exactly sure yet. It was actually kind of funny. Iowa came up at least once last weekend as a possibility of remaining on the schedule, which I was just completely floored by, but which I don't necessarily believe, but I guess I'll throw it out there. And there's all sorts of crazy rumors about what will and will not be on the schedule. But I think it will be a crowd pleaser. I'll put it that way. I think people will like it, and I think it will address a few of the issues that IndyCar has had in the past.
Thank goodness for our president and savior, Doug Bowles. We're heading to Nashville this weekend. We can't wait for that. It's going to be
more glaze on Doug Bowles in this than your Kringle. Holy smokes!
You know what? You're the only person that's complained about that. So that sounds like a you problem. We do have a race this weekend, guys. Let's go around the room. Kyle, go first. Hope you had a great NFL fantasy football draft. Who are we taking to win in the Music City? 40 minutes south of the Music City coming up this weekend.
Well, I just got done taking. We took Josh Allen.
Well done.
We got it done.
I like it. I like it.
Do you get his girlfriend too, or
what?
Hey, calm down.
I picked Connor last week. That didn't go great. Give me Joseph Newgarden. I think, it's the people from Nashville, from Tennessee this week. Taylor Swift just got engaged. So I'll take the blonde from Tennessee to get it done this weekend.
We almost got through the entire show. Almost. You know what, guys? Here's the thing. It doesn't surprise me one bit, dude. The minute they were on a podcast together, it's like no female in her right mind goes on her man's podcast. She ain't putting a ring on it.
You know what happened? We got it. The same day that IndyCar announces a new video game, we get Taylor Swift engaged. What a day! Well,
I texted someone. I texted one of my friends who's a Swiftie. This person is a man, unfortunately, and I said, "Is this what it feels like? Do you feel the same way about this engagement that I feel about the IndyCar video game?" And the answer was an emphatic yes. So you know what? Everybody won today. Everybody was winning. And who's going to win in Nashville? Who's going to win at Music City? You know what? I think Mr. Patricio Award was pretty upset last year that he did not win this race. I think he's strong on the short ovals. I think he's going to want to finish strongly. He's got nothing to race for anymore. He's locked into second in the championship. I think it's going to be Pato Award in Victory Lane to cap off the season.
As much as I would love to say we're going to get a Colton Herta walk-off win, I'm going to go with his teammate and Kyle Kirkwood to get it done this weekend. Chris Hardy says we should do the Waffle House Challenge. David's more of a Denny's guy coming up this weekend. I think the proposal was false because his knee wasn't officially all the way down, so it wasn't actually taking a knee. So we'll see what happens.
It was a fake spike. It was the fake spike. He was going.
It was a fake spike. I do want to say this, and I know you guys will agree. Thank you so much for spending your Tuesday nights with us. We've been rolling throughout the season already, episode 26. We're going to keep this going. Hopefully some bigger, better opportunities will come up, including me getting a microphone here over the next couple of months into next season. If you are in Nashville, please feel free to say hi. Even if David's eating, come on up and say hello. That happened.
No, especially if I'm eating.
Yeah, especially if he's eating in the hospitality that begins with an H. Come up and say, how's that French toast this morning? He will absolutely love that. So thank you so much. I don't know about a tweet up or anything like that this weekend, but if you're out there, send us a message and we'll be sure to come say hello. Can't wait for this weekend. Final race of the season, which is kind of bizarre. I did want to mention this. Our friend Brett, who is a loyal listener to this, loves your stuff, David. I've helped him sell a majority of his father's collection. And David, you benefited that. Got some hats yesterday that I bought back for us.
I wear one of them in my video game video, so you should check out that video if you want to see that hat. It's pretty cool.
I'll send out the link. Brent's got a lot of cool stuff up for sale as well. We're going to try to help him out. Some old school vintage stuff. Can't wait for it. Kyle, as always, thank you so much. Wish you were coming to Nashville this weekend. God forbid, last year I was standing on a speaker dancing the night before the race. You won't get to witness that maybe this year, but we will miss you this weekend. Tell everybody where you'll be at coming up.
This weekend I'll be in Mooresville, North Carolina for the IME Grand Nationals. So that's a really cool event. Friday night and Saturday night, we'll be live on Kart Chaser if you got nothing to do. For those of you in Nashville, I hope you're not watching Kart Chaser because I hope you're at the bars downtown. I hope you're having fun without me. Hopefully next year we'll be there. I'll be there. But yeah, good things. Like one of the best weekends of the year on Kart Chaser this weekend, Friday night and Saturday night. Go tune in.
Darren Hickey, Kyle needs your recommendations for best chicken wings in the Mooresville area. I know you'll be the guy to get that done. So, all right, a lot that we probably left on the table, but guess what, guys and girls? We've got 6 months to talk about it. Starting next Tuesday,
2 days to go.
Of the off season.
Just wait until you think we ramble and banter in these episodes. Just wait until it's the off season. Wait until October when we really have a lot of things to talk about.
You guys aren't ready for the December depression arc.
This is going to turn into a Pacers podcast, isn't it?
It'll be shit on the Colts weekly. I'm gonna be pissed. We're gonna have a 10-minute rant. I'm gonna be like, that Daniel Jones sucks. We're winning too much.
Maybe they'll get us some more IndyCar related guests on this show and drivers, because that would be cool. I guess I can't get an interview with Pillow this week. Got denied for that. But David, enjoy your one-on-one with Alex Pillow. Can't wait for that. Can't wait to see the All-American rejects and live like it's 2005. Looking forward to that. I'll have an interview tomorrow with Tony Kanaan up on, I think we're going to put it on the Unverified page here, so you guys will be able to check that out. David recapped the video game today. Yesterday had an awesome sit-down interview with Chip Ganassi. Be sure to check that out. There is some great information, some tidbits, and a lot to kind of dissect in what he looks at with Alex Pillow compared to some of the greats and more. I talked to Tony Kanaan about the marketing, the sport, and lack thereof. So can't wait for that. Thank you guys so much for being with us on Tuesday. We'll be here next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. For everybody here at Unverified, have fun in Nashville if you're going. If not, maybe we push that 1 million rating if YouTube TV can settle with Fox. Let's hope for it. See you later, guys.